To introduce the fifth president of Macomb Community College, Dr. James Jacobs.
Thank you, Jim. And let me also thank all of you for really all the work that you do at the college and all the good things that you've done over the last year. I mean, this institution is a great institution, and it's a great institution because of the people who work here. So we should always never forget that it's not the buildings, it's not the bricks and mortars, it's the people. I'm going to be pretty candid today because I think we've gone through a very important and very interesting year as a college. And I think we've done a lot of things and we've created a lot of things, but we also need to kind of reflect upon that. So I'm going to spend a little time kind of looking at some of the activities over the year and also kind of project forward now where I think we're going to be going in the next couple of years. Some of you have heard before. Parts of this maybe you have not heard before. So hopefully it'll engender some questions, and later on in the afternoon we can certainly answer them. Are we ready? Perfect. All right. Okay. The college is really navigating some uncharted waters now. Part of that is the result of the defeat of the bond proposal in November. But there are also other factors operating. You know, the right to work legislation has both had negative and positive impacts. The board and the college leadership and the unions have come together to forge a new path for the institution. And there are many grounds for really being optimistic. And we must seek to understand the challenges ahead and work proactively to find solutions. And in this context, I do also want to say that the board has played a very, very important role of leadership in the last couple of years. And Christine Bonkowski, who was introduced to you before, has been a major force in really helping us confront our issues and move really forward. So what I'm going to do now is focus a little bit again on our context that's unfolding, talk about some of the actions that have happened in the past 4 or 5 months, and then kind of look forward to both the challenges of the future as well as some of the next steps that we're going to be taking. So let's, again, start with and again, many of you have seen this before, but it's always important to keep it in mind. And when we look at the college and we say, what's our context? What are the things that we face? Here again are the 3 large streams of revenue, and you can see the decline in the property taxes, the decline in state aid, and the growth of tuition and fees as a significant part of what we need to function as an institution. Our revenue sources, again, shrunk on the state level, shrunk on property taxes. And again, these are not small increments. These are large amounts of money. And that last bullet, I think, is very important. If the state legislature changes the personal property taxes, that's, again, another $2.1 million lost in revenue for the institution. So we're trying to develop, grow, handle increased amounts of students, do the activities that we do in a context of shrinking revenues. We've addressed those challenges in many different occasions, and just to kind of go over that a little bit, this is pre-November 2012. We've been reducing our budgets over $16 million since 2008. Staffing, we've eliminated 35 positions primarily through attrition. We've had a wage freeze. And in 2010 and 2011, in order to balance the budget, we took a $9 million amount of money out of the budget and raise that money through a bond, selling bonds. All of this was in anticipation of the bond campaign, and last year I know I spent a lot of time talking about the bond campaign, and many of you worked very, very hard on it, etc. But we lost. And it's important, I think, to talk a little bit about this, just because it was a major activity and we have to sum up why this happened. And I think in large part we lost because of a miscalculation. We had support for our proposal, but that support dissipated and disappeared when our proposal was placed into context with a series of other state proposals. That we really didn't consider the impact of how the other proposals would affect attitudes towards ours. So that kind of miscalculation, I think, did really change the dynamic in the election, and we lost. We lost by a little bit, but it was still a defeat. We had not anticipated that. The polls indicated that we were doing very well, and most importantly, the polls also indicated the strength of the college in the community. So while the community was reluctant to increase our millage, our bond proposal, accept our bond proposal, it was no question that there was strong support for all the activities that the college was doing. So we summarized that by saying that the community supported the college but wasn't willing to vote for the bond proposal, but was telling us to find another way, to continue the activities of the institution. And that, I think, was an important point of departure in November for us. And we began to think about ways in which we would accept our position in the community as being a very affordable option. And these are some pieces of information which, again, keep in mind as we talk about the college and all its activities. Our millage rate is the third lowest of all the 28 colleges. We have the second lowest cost. Something now that we're talking about is cost of attendance. What does it cost for a student to come to the college, take a full load of classes with books, with everything? Our cost of attendance figured in the is about $1,400, or the seventh lowest in the state. So we do well as an institution functioning as a low-cost option. But we had to improve. We had to figure out, find another way as we developed our programs and our budget. And just this kind of slide summarizes some of the major factors that are important in creating for us the new opportunities and programs that we're going to be talking about today. First, no question, the local economy has improved. In fact, Michigan as a state, and certainly Southeast Michigan as a community, as a region, has benefited from the growth and expansion of the auto industry. That is resulting in greater property tax revenues and some stable revenues from the state. Even though we didn't increase our revenue very much from the state this year, at least it wasn't decreased. So the large decline that really occurred since the Great Recession of 2008 has leveled off, and in fact there's some slight marginal gains. Second, and very important, our enrollment continues to be stable. In fact, in comparison to other community colleges in the state, our enrollment has suffered a slight decline from last year, but that decline is far less than most of our colleagues in other community colleges. Most importantly, that enrollment composition has begun to change a little bit. About 10% of our enrollment comes from out-of-county sources, increasing the amount of tuition dollars. And again, if you go back to our earlier slide, that seeing that 41% of our revenue comes from enrollment, that fact that enrollment is stable means that we have gotten a fairly consistent set of revenues from our enrollment. Third, and this is very, very important, the Board of Trustees accepted the contracts that were negotiated in the last couple of weeks at last week's board meeting, and those contracts really provide us with a very good handle on what our financial costs are going to be over the next 3 to 5 years. That's a very important kind of planning point for the stability of the institution. Very, very important for us in the future. Fourth, very important activity was announced in February, just last month, by Wayne State University. After a number of years of planning and working with Wayne State University, the Board of Governors of Wayne State University approved a plan to construct a 40,000 square foot facility across the street from South Campus on 12 Mile Road, the old Farmer Jack's building. And to our knowledge, this is the first time a major research university has actually positioned a building, created a building to be close to a community college. There are programs that Wayne State University is going to run in that building that will be taken out of their main campus in Detroit and moved to the new campus in Warren, so that they will work together with our programs at South Campus. This is really kind of unprecedented, where you see a research university and a major community college working together on curriculum, labs, and all kinds of activities which I think are going to be extremely beneficial to the future of the county and the future particularly of the south end of the county. We'll spend a little time talking about that later. Fifth, in a very important vote, the Board of Trustees very courageously, in my opinion, stepped up before the spring and voted not only a small tuition increase for next year, but very importantly a $5 facilities and renovation fee. That provides us with incoming capital so that we can continue the renovation program that would have been funded by the bond proposal, but now will be funded in part by this renovation fee. And finally, some external events, the whole issue of right to work, which we'll talk a little bit about later, changes in the MIPSers, in the retirement system, and also the federal health care plans place new burdens upon us, which we hope to meet in a variety of ways, which we'll talk a little bit about. So these are the kind of developments which have occurred just since November. And we've spent a lot of time working through some of these. So, from now, we're now positioned to talk a little bit more about what we're going to do in the future. This is just again, our technology and, our renovation fee and the impact on tuition for the, starting in July 2013. That brings in $3.8 billion of revenue. Again, $2.3 million will be used for facilities and technology. That's important for keeping us in the future. Here are some of the college's responses to both right-to-work legislation and also the fact that we do have a committed and important leadership in the county in terms of our legislative delegation as well as our county leadership to the college. Now, how do we move forward? What are the things that we need to do to increase our programs, our activities? What does the next 2 years bring? Here are some of the challenges that we face. First, our new strategy is going to be heavily dependent on enrollment and retention. That as part of this, student financial aid becomes an important part of the new way in which our students get their tuition supported, get their progress through the system. Our strategy is going to be dependent on flexibility and our organizational ability to continue to attract more and more not only students, but make them successful, make them get degrees, make them realize their abilities to transfer to four-year institutions. We're also going to be going a little bit into debt. We're going to be renovating buildings, we're going to be borrowing money, and we have to come up with financial plans which recognize that and which continue to move us forward. And finally, we'll be increasingly dependent on both the county, the region, and our own institutional factors to do all these things. That the autonomy of the institution in some ways is going to be interdependent with a variety of other organizations in our community. So, how do we move forward? First, we begin to recognize that we need to build an organization that will create and focus on enrollment and retention. That's our principal learning objective in the organization. Part of that is going to be to recognize the significance of our work in relationship to four-year partners, that we have a huge growing interest in the community in how students come here and transfer to four-year institutions. We have a great start in that with the University Center. We've developed very complex and very good relationships with a number of our partners, Wayne State University, Oakland University, Walsh College of Business. We need to continue that. Third, we need to find alternative sources of revenue that in part are directed at student financial aid, but in part directed at programs that we do, perhaps even capital investments. So we need a donor base. We need to function as an organization that has a substantial foundation. And fourth, we also need to look very carefully at our economic and community development efforts, particularly in the southern end of the county. We obviously have a large campus, South Campus on 12 Mile Road. The Wayne State facility creates a new opportunity for us to do some very significant work in the community. And finally, and again, very important for our own institutional function, we need to make sure that our staff not only continues to do the good work it does, but we need to recognize and grow the talent that we have within the staff so that we can continue to develop new programs, new ways of moving forward. So, we still maintain the three major institutional priorities, and later on this afternoon, all of you will get an opportunity to get a copy of, we put out a new kind of brochure which lists these institutional priorities and talks about many of the things I'm going to outline in my presentation this morning. And this is a kind of very quick way of looking at the institutional priorities for the next couple of years. They remain the same: student success, finding alternative sources of support, and focusing on efficiencies and effectiveness. So let's talk about each one of our initiatives a little bit. Student success. Student success begins by keeping in mind that our marketing efforts, the kinds of things that we do to attract students, is concentrated on a value proposition. And that value proposition to parents and to adults is that come to Macomb Community College because it is a quality institution that you can realize a post-secondary education at a very low cost. We're going to emphasize quality. We're going to emphasize our attractive programs. We're going to emphasize the fact that this, as an institution, is an institution that's a great place to start your journey to a four-year degree. That's our first part of our student success. Second, we're going to develop a process by which students who are attracted by our marketing efforts do in fact get captured by the institution. We have large numbers of students who apply to Macomb but often don't register for classes. They either back off or there's no attempt to outreach to them to make them see the significance of our course offerings, our registration, etc. In a sense, what we're doing is we're narrowing the funnel through these efforts, and they've been very, very successful. Now, one of the reasons why our enrollment is strong is not only do we have a good marketing campaign, but we also have a very effective conversion strategy. The numbers of students who have been interested in Macomb Community College and actually registered and signed up for classes has increased by 7% in the last year. That we've managed to attract more students to us who are taking more courses. Again, it's a tribute to the staff here for working on this program. A third part of this is once you're here, what is a coherent set of courses, programs, orientation, counseling, all the kinds of things which students, particularly students from first-generation families where there is no one in the family who has experienced a post-secondary education, have to come to grips with in terms of their orientation to the college. We know the students at Macomb Community College have work, have families, and school, and that they're constantly juggling those three things. How well we can utilize the kind of our orientation and our counseling sessions to provide a coherent structure for these students becomes an important part of that. And finally, as part of student success, it's very important to keep in mind that the large numbers of students, particularly the younger students who come to us, are seeking a four-year degree. So the way in which we can both attract students out of the high schools and some of them in our middle college who are coming to classes here, as well as move them through our programs into a four-year institution, becomes an important part of our future activities. So our strategies have been to develop the retention and strategy which emphasizes degrees and college completion. We follow up very well with applicants. We try to develop a real enrollment, retention, recruitment strategy. We've redesigned our student orientation. Our website is being redesigned at this point. Our intake process, we've done a large study with the Community College Research Center on how to make certain adjustments. And many of those for staff here you don't see, but the result you do see, which is our stable enrollment. And we very much increased the effectiveness of student financial aid. About, again, 53% of all the revenues that we get as a college comes from Pell Grants, so it becomes very important how we distribute that financial aid and the way in which we operate. Here's just some ways in which we've made some changes. This is some of our marketing cards, postcards. We've won a couple of awards in terms of marketing. These are sent to students. We do a whole marketing campaign for students who are at four-year institutions coming back over the summer. We're starting to redesign, this will be in the next couple of months, our website. This is the new image that we're going to create on the website. It will have opportunities for individual marketing of some of the individual attractive parts of our institution, including the Macomb Center for the Performing Arts. So this area of recruitment and retention for student success becomes very, very important. But once the students are here, what are the programs and what are the curriculum that they face? In order for us to really be a quality institution, we have to continue to emphasize quality programs, quality curriculum, etc. Part of that is to get students to see that there are coherent pathways. And those pathways aren't necessarily towards a particular occupation. They may stream to a particular cluster of activities in business or in health or in manufacturing or in four-year institutions. And we have to link our students very closely with what we're doing in this institution with what they'll see in the four-year institutions that they come to. Keeping all of this in mind, it becomes important when we look at all the things that we do as an institution, so that we're emphasizing not only our quality, but we're in the curriculum and the programs, but we're placing them within the framework of both our education, enrichment efforts, and economic development. Again, these are some specific areas, and many of you in the instructional units have seen this. We developed a whole student success course, which will now be mandatory for all students who have scored low in developmental education. We have an everyday math class, which transfers both to Oakland University and Wayne State, which has a significant success rate. We play a role in achieving the dream. All these pieces indicate that we're making the kinds of curriculum and course changes which are leading to greater student success. We will continue to go down this road. We also do a very, very good job in the area of career and technical education. Last year alone, we've placed over 1,000 students in jobs through our defense and manufacturing grants and for our aerospace and defense grants. This is a good time as the economy improves for the college to position itself very well among adults, working adults, and adults making a transition, and young people who want to enter the world of work. So we're not shortchanging that, but we're putting this within the context. Let's move then from curriculum and program and student retention and student success to another part of our initiatives, which is to develop alternative sources of support. We have a foundation. That foundation is now growing. It's going to add some community board members, and we're developing very clear, conscious initiatives that project growth for revenue. Part of that is going to be utilized in our own institution for scholarships. Part of it may be utilized to develop new programs, and maybe even some of it for capital campaigns. We've targeted efforts at the staff, at retirees, at alumni. We're also encouraged by some major donors who have been asked to step up their donations for specific parts of the institution, the Lorenzo Cultural Center, the Performing Arts Center, for some of the programs we do. And we're looking for corporate and individual funding efforts. This has all increased over the last couple of years and is really playing a major role and hopefully a growing role in our future sources of revenue. At the same time we've increasing our revenue, we've also increased our desire for both efficiency and effectiveness. All the renovation programs that we will be doing in the next couple of years will be really to utilize these renovations to lower our costs for fuel and efficiencies and savings for a variety of energy sources. We're going to improve our service and our technology, expand the bandwidth, and try to create a situation where we can utilize technology more and more in the classroom. And we're going to try to develop our staff in a multi-skilled way so that we can take on the various functions that the institution does, because we have a diverse set of activities that we're doing, not just in the classroom, but in all the things we do in the cultural activities, in the community-based organizations, etc. And we're going to try to do that in the most efficient and effective way. All of this not only creates greater savings for the institution, but it also creates a certain kind of brand image, and that individuals who come to utilize our facilities or come to experience the college either through the Performing Arts Center or through some of the activities that the Lorenzo Cultural Center does, experience a certain kind of effectiveness and efficiency which makes us a very important institution in the community. We also make sure that we take care of our students. Increasingly, our students are coming from backgrounds where some form of income assistance occurs. Many of you know about this program, Dreamkeepers. Dreamkeepers is growing in its size. It's growing in its ability to work with students. You're going to see some of those students later on in the highlights of the year. So all of this, I think, becomes important for our future. Now, here's something which we haven't really developed very well and are only going to begin to do now that we have the kind of opportunity that Wayne State is kind of giving us in the South End. It is clear that while the county is growing and kind of restoring itself from the 2008 recession, that there still is not enough employment opportunities for sustainable wage jobs in the county or even in Southeast Michigan. So the college, which has done very well on responding to the needs of companies in the community to create career pathways for students, must do more in terms of actually job creation. So we're starting to link our activities far closer with the county's economic development initiatives. It's initiatives in advanced manufacturing, it's initiatives in Lake St. Clair and water technology and tourism and hospitality, it's initiatives in agriculture in the northern end of the county. So that the college serves, in a sense, as a center for economic development, not just a workforce and technological center. We're going to establish something called an innovation fund. It's based on some work done in a couple of other community colleges, where we'll be able to create opportunities for donors and programs to give them tax-exempt status so we can utilize that money to loan that to different businesses as long as they hire and provide opportunities for our students. We're going to try to, in a sense, use the college as a springboard for economic innovation and growth. We're going to do that in conjunction with Wayne State University. That Wayne State University provides us with a new lever to do community and economic development. This year we were named the Economic Development Partner of the Year by Macomb County. We're going to continue that process through a series of projects with Wayne State University, our CAT Center, which is our Center for Advanced Automotive Technology, is going to play a role in the new Wayne State University building. We have a Department of Energy grant with Wayne State. We're going to continue to work in entrepreneurial development with Wayne State University, and hopefully that will spill over into the community, will spill over with new initiatives, new business formations, new economic development. We're doing this not just because we think it's important for our students. We're also doing it because we think it's important for the community and we think it's important for the future of Macomb County. That's something which I call the paradox of the South End has become important for the college. What's that paradox? That if you look at the county and you talk about economic growth and development, in a very strange way, the south end of the county, which has two of the most important economic institutions, the General Motors Tech Center and the U.S. Army Tank Command and its research group, TARDAC, in the south end of the county, below 14 Mile Road, doesn't experience the kind of growth and development that those two institutions, you would think from those two institutions. That, in fact, the south end of the county is often seen as an area that is beginning to deteriorate. At the same time, it's also the area where large numbers of young people, the school districts are expanding in size. It's an area where the college really needs to be very active. For us, as an institution, the South End is very important because that's where one of our campuses is. So to think about what we can do as an institution in the South End for both community and economic development is not something which is just good for the county. It's also going to be good for the college. It's going to be essential for the college over the next, 10 to 15 years, because without these kinds of interventions, this part of the county will lag behind in terms of economic development and in terms of growth. So this area of calling attention to the needs of the South End, calling attention to our development with Wayne State University, we represent both the two largest single post-secondary institutions in that part of the county, and by working together, creating a kind of synergy, we think there's going to be some significant growth and development. So this is really a new strategy. This is something we're just going to begin this year, and hopefully with the participation of the Wayne State University as an institution, and with your support and the kind of work that we can do, we think we can help transform the South End of the county, provide really new economic growth and capacity, and really make a big difference. So that's our kind of far-reaching goal. Now, all these things are going to be impacted by a variety of wild cards, things that we don't control. And they're important to keep in mind, because as we work out these strategies, as we look towards this kind of growth, what are some of the challenges that we face? First, on the federal level, clearly a good deal of student financial aid is heavily dependent on Pell Grants. What happens to those Pell Grants? How they do they increase? Are there going to be restrictions placed on them? How much is this year, and all of you obviously follow the government sequestration process, and all. Pell wasn't affected by any of that. So the amounts of money that we get in Pell is about the same as we did last year. However, in the future, do budget reductions impact Pell? What does that do to our enrollment, etc.? The health care laws. As many of you know, the federal health care legislation, often known as Obamacare, part of it has been implemented, part of it is being implemented slowly over this year. One of the things that we face is how much part-time workers are covered under the new federal health care legislation. And it was important for us to make sure that our employees have health care. At the same time, we have to walk a fine line of making sure that the health care legislation doesn't put the college in a situation where we have new costs that we really can't easily take on. So those are all issues that could affect our development and growth, because they could have particular effect not only on our enrollment strategies, but also on our human resource strategies. State issues affect us. Pension changes, our MIPSR's pension contribution, something we don't control, controlled by the legislature. If the legislature decides to increase our contributions, that's money that comes out of our own budget. I mentioned before the changes in tax laws. Anytime the Michigan legislature changes the formula of taxes, that has an effect on property taxes in the county, which has an effect on, of course, the revenue that we bring in. And I do want to mention the right to work legislation, because I think it has a kind of destabilizing effect. It has an effect which now, in the past, we've had a great relationship with all our unions. We think it's important to continue that relationship. Now we have to kind of look over our shoulder to see what happens in Lansing, and how our relationship has to take into account some of the things that our legislators do. This does not mean that we're going to change our perspective, but it does mean we have to consider, what we do in a larger context. And finally, there are some internal issues. Often we get stuck on the financing and figuring out, how to short-term respond to things without keeping a broader vision in mind. It is very, very important to keep the vision of the institution growing and changing. There are many people in the community who are not only dependent on this institution for their future, but Macomb Community College plays a huge role in where Macomb County is going. Another important internal issue, of course, is our morale as a staff. There are many people who work very, very hard at this institution. We've gone through a long period of time when there haven't been raises and there haven't been ways in which people are getting, the money that they deserve. The board, I think, is increasingly united around a way in which we can move forward. But all of that is dependent on who gets elected to the board, what kind of morale we have in the staff, so that it has an impact. And most importantly, from an internal issue, is that as we proceed in some of these activities, the community development activity, the work with the four-year institutions, the work with the county, some of our autonomy, some of our ability to decide things solely on our own internal needs becomes a little bit more difficult. And you're going to see that part of our development is, in fact, the success of that is, in fact, going to be dependent on other institutions. So how well we work, how well we act with other institutions, I think becomes very, very important. So I think there's strong grounds for optimism. Last week, we had significant activities by the Board of Trustees in the passage of 4 major new contracts. That created a small firestorm of activity, and some of you know about this. Some people in the state legislature began to question some of those settlements, etc. It was a time when, again, to lead the institution and to move it forward, you felt that you were being tugged and pulled into a debate that you really didn't want to get into. It was very refreshing at the end of last week to see one of our own students, Ryan Cornelison, a student who was a criminal justice student. Some of you know the story because you've read it in the paper. He managed to save an infant by performing CPR, and that got us nice headlines. In fact, one of the state legislators who is opposing us on Right to Work sent me a little email saying, "How did you pull that off?" As if, we organized it. But it's important when you see something like that to realize that, it's not about this narrow little vision of whether, somebody's committee in Lansing finds out whether the settlement was a 10% increase or a 10% increase or a 10% decrease, or that we make sure that the legislators still feel comfortable with us. It really is about people like Ryan, who learns his techniques and learns what he does in this institution. And I think one of the worst things that we can do is not continue to, one, have faith in our own talents and have faith in our vision that this institution is going to play a key role, not just for the Ryans of the world, but for also all the people in Macomb County. So it's really with a kind of profound sense of optimism that we've gone through a lot this year. The bond issue and then all the things that we've done to try to, create a situation where we've recovered from that. And I think we're really in the right spot now to spend the next 2 years doing the kinds of things that we outlined here. So that's the vision. Have a great day, and I'll look forward to your questions this afternoon. Thank you.